I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. This is one of those full transparency episodes of the Beyond the Bones podcast. Recently, here at the Houston Museum of Natural Science, we opened our brand new exhibit, Extreme Animals Alive, showcasing the superhero-like adaptations of the animal kingdom. Since we have live animals on display, I thought it would be enlightening and even downright fun to talk to the head honcho in charge of caring for these animals, Stephanie Bradbury. I met with her in the Fennec Foxes section of our new exhibit to discuss exactly how our animals came into our care, exactly what is done to care for them, and delve into the literal blood, sweat, and tears involved in ensuring they aren't just happy and healthy, but thriving. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
I think let's start with the fact that we are in front of the Fennec Fox exhibit. They look to be snoozing right now. And I think that's a good cue to talk about what is the daily life for the Fennec Fox specifically on our display.
So the two on display, which they are Ember and Blaze, behind the scenes we have other cute little pet names like you would for your cat and dog. Their life consists of a lot of eating and sleeping, as most babies would do, even human babies, a lot of eating and sleeping. But if you guys look closely, you can see a lot of little footprints in the sand. There's a lot of toys in there for them as well to play with. Fennec Foxes are also going to be mostly nocturnal once they grow up, but we're going to try to get them to more of a diurnal schedule, getting them used to being awake during the day. But for the time being, until they pretty much hit maturity, they're going to be sleeping and eating and then playing occasionally.
And how old are they?
They are, I think, 7 weeks today, actually.
Wow.
So their birthday was April 8th.
So I think there's concern about, naturally there's concern, not with us specifically, but around the world of this idea of just kind of grabbing a wild animal out of the Sahara or something like that and just shoving them into a cage.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening here, obviously.
No.
This is a world-class institution. To say we love these animals and care for these animals is probably one of the biggest understatements I can make. Can you talk about how we care for and absolutely love these foxes specifically?
So like I was hired here at the museum specifically to take care of the animals. I do other things here as well, but my main job is to make sure the animals are happy. While we love the guests and we love the guests' happiness, that's other people. Mine is for the animals. So we do not get animals out of the wild. If we do get animals that way, it's because something had happened to them and they need to be, or they have been rehabilitated and they need a home and they cannot be released into the wild. So we try to give them as much of their natural environment as we can. Other animals like our foxes, there are specific breeders that breed animals for display, for museums, for institutions like this. So we wouldn't go to a breeder, and I'm not saying that all of them are bad, not for sure, but we wouldn't go to a place that would breed animals just to give them away to the public for, or people who have never done a research on what it takes to care for a Fennec Fox. So the place that we got most of our animals from were from places that give animals or sell animals to museums, to zoos, to aquariums, places like that. They do a lot of research. I had to give a lot of background information on the museum. I had to give them schematics and blueprints of all of the tanks. So they really care for the animals and they're really concerned for where they're going. And as we are really concerned and care about where we get the animals from as well. Yeah. Right.
So I think there's this kind of perception. And again, this is completely understandable. We understand probably more than a lot of general population the importance of caring for these animals ethically. Other people may have more extreme definitions of what is ethical and what is not. But as far as animals on display to the public, there's no room for error. There's no room to mistreat these animals in any sort of way. We love these animals, obviously. Yeah. What does a day look like for the foxes?
So first thing in the morning, before we do anything, before we do our chores with the other animals, we come in and check on the babies because they are babies. And this is actually, this past weekend was their first weekend staying here overnight. They've been coming home with me so I can give them their extra midnight feedings as you would with a newborn baby.
Yeah.
So it's like having children all over again for me. So I made sure my staff came in first thing in the mornings to come check on the foxes, to make sure they're okay, to check the temperatures in the tank. And then they would say hi, play with them, do what they need to do. And then they'd come in and feed them their breakfast. And we play with the foxes, spend time in here, clean up any mess like poop, pee, anything we find. Spend a lot of enrichment time. Again, lots of time spending with the foxes because they need it, but because we love it. But then we give them lunch. So lunchtime is going to be around noon, like us. And then they're going to get pretty much like between dinner and lunch meal. I forget, what's that called? Not brunch, but
dinner, supper?
Supper, I guess. Yeah, supper.
Between lunch and dinner?
Yeah.
Snack?
Yeah, snacks, big snacks. So they would get their snacks before we leave. Since we get here super early in the morning, we don't want to have to stay here all day until the museum closes. So we'll give them their snack. And then we have somebody else who stays until about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and they give them their dinner. The foxes don't need their midnight feedings anymore, and they are off milk. So they just need the breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner like a normal toddler would. So we'd be playing with them in between then. We'd be cleaning up their enclosure. They're getting a lot of enrichment and attention from us, probably more attention than what they want because they want to sleep all day. But we also want to make sure that they're bonded with us because they're here for life. After this exhibit's over, after any animal exhibit's over that we have here, animals are here for life. So we try to use them for like learning programs, like our Wildlife on Wheels programs or some of our labs. And if the animals just aren't feeling it, or if they just can't, it stresses them out, the animals are still here for life because it's not fair to the animal that we get them, put them on display, and then
just release them.
Yeah, no, that's not okay for us to get rid of the animals afterwards. So we'll find, we always have a place for them, and we never have more animals than what we can handle here. Even if that means that we hire another staff member, like we did just specifically for this exhibit. She started right whenever we started getting a lot of animals here, and we never have more than what we can take, and then the animals will have a place here always after any exhibit. And they get well taken care of, well loved, lots of snuggles.
So I was going to ask, if we started to see the foxes, staying on the foxes, if we started to see an animal displaying some habits that they are stressed out, or like you said, that they're not digging it, that there's some sort of change in behavior or health or whatever, what happens at that point? If and when a fox started to display those?
I'd pull them immediately.
Yeah.
So we would figure something out. But if the animals are displaying any signs of stress, anything, whether it's just a lot of scratching like a stressed out dog would, or if they're just running around whenever they're not supposed to be running around, they would get pulled. They've got a place in our animal room, so our secret, not so secret location behind the scenes that we keep all of our program animals. They would go there until the vet would check them out, or, until they need to do what they need to do until they're healthy or permanently. And we would figure out another situation for this.
Right.
But that's why we have the babies, so they can kind of get used to people and, this is double pain. So whenever you knock on the glass, we don't want people knocking on the glass, by the way.
Yeah.
But, if people do, when they do, they can't hear it. You can see they're still asleep right now. So, they shouldn't stress out, but if they do, they've always got a place behind the scenes, and we will figure something else out.
It's something similar. I can see across the way here, the touch tank. We've had that touch tank for a few years now. It seems crazy that the time has passed so quickly.
Yeah.
But the animals in the touch tank specifically, they will rotate. They don't spend their entire life on display.
Right.
They are rotated for their own health, for their own sanity, for their own stress levels. They get R&R and breaks and
that. And we do have scheduled maintenance days or tank closing days whenever we just shut down either the tank room, or I guess since it's incorporated in this exhibit, we'd shut down the exhibit. So they get a day or two of no hands in tanks unless it's from myself or the people feeding them.
Right.
So it's the maintenance days where we would just test water quality. We would maybe add things to the tanks. We'd play with the rays or leave them alone, depending on what they want. Some of them like to be handled and messed with, but no hands in tanks whatsoever. And if it came down to it, if something was going on with the water, with all the hands in the tanks, we would just, shut it down anyway. And, no people can come in that day.
Exactly. You mentioned earlier that you are here and the staff is here for the animals, not for the people.
We love
the people, obviously, but the priority of all of this is that the animals are well taken care of, that their needs are being met health-wise and psychologically, that it's the animals' health and happiness first. And then, the happiness of visitors and guests who come through, which is amazing, because we will simply not, why would any institution anywhere keep a sick animal, any respected institution? This is not, what is it, Tiger King or whatever,
King.
whatever that was. That is not the situation here, obviously. Would it be safe to say that there are vets basically on retainer?
Yeah. So we have 3 different vets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if one vet's not available, we go to another one. We've got emergency vets, all of that stuff too. And they all know us. They love our animals. And when I took these guys to the vet last week for the first time, gave them all the paperwork that, the foxes came with, told them all the parameters. The vets got to see the blueprints. And then, they're just like, sounds like you guys did your research. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much my whole job, is researching and caring for animals.
Exactly. Let's move on to some fun. This is all fun. I love this conversation. And by the way, my whole, just speaking personally, Johnny Hemberger, YouTube manager, podcast manager, is transparency. There's no hiding veils or secrecy. I like to show people and talk to people about kind of what really happens behind the scenes, how well exhibits are taken care of, how well the animals certainly are taken care of. I like to do that because I just don't want to have a veil.
It's fun too.
Exactly. People want to know how things work. So let's move on to some fun things about Fennec Foxes. Why are their ears so big and cute?
Well, first, because they're cute, but
yeah, that's the reason.
But that's because they live in desert. They live in a very arid, dry climate. So, like with large elephants, the larger the ears, that's more surface area for heat to expel from.
Yeah.
So they can cool off easier. Which is why also the bottom of their feet, unlike dogs and cats, are fuzzy to help them with the hot sand. But their ears also help them pick up sounds from the sand, because these guys are mostly going to be, they're carnivorous, but they eat roots and berries and veggies as well. But they mostly eat a lot of insects as well. Insects are small, and these guys are nocturnal, so they need those big ears to hear. So if they can't see their prey underneath the sand.
Yeah, why are your ears so big? The better to hear you with, my dear.
Yeah.
And to radiate heat. They're big radiators. It's interesting. I mean, animals have these adaptations throughout the millennia. The Dimetrodon, the big sail in Spinosaurus and all that. The big sail.
Even our ears are adapted to human voices.
Are adapted to human voices, but I'm saying even the sails in Stegosaurus had, and it's theorized that they have those big sails, Dimetrodon, Spinosaurus, Fennec Foxes with the ears, elephants with the ears, as not only a display for mating reasons, looking impressive to other genders of the same animal, but for heat dissipation, to help manage body temperature. So it's really interesting to me to see the big ears on a Fennec Fox, in a way, are related to the sail on a Dimetrodon, in that it's a way to manage body temperature.
Only museum staff would compare them to dinosaurs.
Yeah, but that's what makes the podcast so great. Yeah. Of course, I'm going to draw parallels between a cute fox and a Dimetrodon from X amount of years ago. What about their eyes? Are their eyes adapted?
To dark. So they've got large eyes, large pupils, so the better to see with.
Yeah.
Typically, nocturnal animals have large eyes, so they can pull in more light whenever there's hardly any light sources. So, moonlight or whatever is available. And so they can see a lot better at night than in the day, because I don't know if you guys have ever had to open your eyes in the middle or in the morning, somebody flips on the light whenever you just woke up and it burns. That's because your pupils are super dilated. It hurts. It's not meant for, waking up so early. I don't like that personally, but that's why they're more nocturnal. Their eyes are bigger, and so they're not super adapted for the day. However, some mammals can, they can change from nocturnal schedule to diurnal schedule. It's just a matter of training their eyes and their pupils to dilate and contract.
How big are the groups that they live in? Do they live in big family groups? You said they're...
So there's a lot of things online that say about the family size groups. So I've read anywhere from 5 to 15, mostly just going to be family members, a lot of females. Most of the time, the males, while they are social, the males do roam from group to group, so that way there's a lot of, genetic differences. I think that about the average is a family group of between 5 and 7 foxes.
Okay.
I've obviously never seen it in the wild. I would love to, but I also don't want to go to a desert. I brought the desert here.
Where are they native to?
So it would be probably Upper Africa. So around the Sahara Desert. I actually met somebody who went there and saw some wild Fennec foxes in the mountainous regions of the Sahara Desert.
And what about lifespan?
They can live anywhere from, I want to say, 12 to 18 years. Their lifespan obviously differs in captivity versus in the wild. In the wild, these foxes are more prey animals. So while they are predators, they eat small animals. They're kind of like the rabbits of the world. They're the prey animals. So they don't have such a long lifespan in the wild, but in captivity, they can live anywhere from 12 to 20 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Kind of like a dog.
Like a dog or a cat, around there. That's very...
I mean, they are canaged just like dogs are.
Yeah.
And it's been hard to wrap my head around, like, the noises that these guys make sound like dog noises, but they are opposite. Like, when they start whining, it's not a distress sound. It's sometimes a happy sound.
Yeah.
They do scream too. And in the middle of traffic in Houston, it's not fun.
They're just screaming
They do scream.
Scream like, I was going to say like banshees, but like Fennec foxes. So on the topic of captivity and things, very famously, orcas have their dorsal fin will tip over, and that's like a sign that they're depressed. You talked earlier about a Fennec fox, if it was distressed, it'd be itching like a dog or doing something like that. Are there any other, how would you be able to tell just by looking at a Fennec fox whether it was stressed out?
So just by looking at it, I would say, bald patches, lots of pacing back and forth, lots of scratching. However, again, scratching doesn't necessarily mean it's stressed out. It could just be itchy, like a dog. So a lot of times you just really have to know the animal. So it's hard to come and look at them without knowing their personalities and saying, that's a really stressed out fox. He's not doing good. I mean, that's just their personality.
Right.
All animals, including fish, our stingrays, all of them, they all have their own personalities. And we get to know them over however long the animals are here, however long we're here. We get to know these animals so we can tell based off of their personalities whether or not they're being abnormal. Like some of the animals are like these two foxes, actually, you can't tell them apart by looking at them, but by interacting with them, completely separate personalities. Same with some of our fish in the shark tank. They look exactly the same, but completely different. And that's how we can tell them apart. So it's hard to determine what their stress level is without knowing that animal.
Without having an intimate relationship with the animal to tell. It's kind of like when you're with a human being, with your husband, with my wife. The other day, I was kind of staring off into the distance. I was just thinking about something. And my wife's like, "Are you okay? You're being a little quiet. You're just kind of staring." But it was that little subtle cue of I was just kind of looking at the bookshelf. But she knows me personally. Somebody who didn't know me personally would just say, "Oh, he's staring." I don't know if this is normal behavior for this person or not.
Yeah.
It only comes from being around that person or around the animal for so long that you can be in tune to those little behavioral abnormalities or whatever to know how to then take care of them better, whether it's your person or your dog or your Fennec fox, whatever. It only comes from an intense desire to understand and be around and know and care for that living thing.
That and while we're here with the animals, we see them every single day. We have a lot of animals to take care of. So we also rely on our staff here at the museum, whether they're animal trained or not, like our visitor services staff. Somehow my number got around. I think it was for the shark exhibit whenever things were happening. People text me all the time, give me pictures or emails asking like, is this behavior okay? Because they're also advocating for our animals. And if I get a text, unless I am like, oh no, I know that, that's fine. We will come down and we'll go look at them. Or I tell them, send me a picture, let me know, and I will come in. Like, I've come in from work whenever I go home. I've had to turn around and come back just to check on an animal, and I'm always willing to do that. We're always on call here. I've stayed the night here at the museum before. Whenever it was Hurricane Harvey, I had to stay that whole week to make sure the animals were okay. I've come in at night before. I've come in 7 days in a row for animal care. So that's how we get to know the animals, and that's how we are how dedicated we are to the animals to make sure that nobody is stressing out. And if they are stressing out, we can catch it immediately.
Exactly. Make sure they're taken care of.
Yeah.
Because let's not beat around the bush here. The reasons why zoos exist and why animals are on display in a museum setting such as ours, why they're cared for so routinely and intensely, and they're scrutinized for their health to make sure that they're as happy as can be. It's so that children and adults can come through. They finally have a face to the name. They finally are able to see this creature in real life, to understand that this creature needs to be protected outside of these walls, that their family in the animal kingdom, they are protected in the Sahara, so that every time, somebody wants to put up a new subdivision or something, that you do have people step in and say, let's think about the foxes. Exactly. And those people who said, let's think about the foxes, probably had their first encounter with the fox in a display such as this, where the animal is taken care of so routinely and so intensely, so that they can bring that inspiration to generations of people to then protect that animal out in the wild.
Exactly.
So while
these animals eat better than I do, honestly.
I said before we started the podcast, I said these animals obviously, like, they live better than I did in my first 5 apartments. Like, they are so well taken care of. Their air conditioning works better. Their lights stay on. They don't have to call the electric company. Remember back in the day, kind of off topic here, but I used to have to go to H-E-B or Kroger to pay the light bill. You couldn't just be on your phone and be like, here's my information, please turn the lights back on. It's like I had to walk because I had no gas money. Uphill 20 miles through the Texas heat and snow at the same time to go pay the bill at H-E-B. These animals don't have that kind of stress.
I'm the person that does that for them. I pay the bills. I mean, I can go back there and say hi to them so they can wake up if you guys would like.
Yeah. I'll just kind of kneel down. Hi, baby.
They're just where's my food?
They are so unbearably cute. I'm going to move the camera to see them better.
Since they're not dogs, but they're canids.
Right.
They're related to dogs, but they also have cat-like attributes. They get a mixture of between cat and dog vaccines, but it's also special cat and dog vaccines. And every fox that my vet has seen, because they see exotic animals, including foxes, has seen different reactions if the fox does have a reaction. So while these two are still babies and they still need all their baby vaccines, for the first 8 hours, they have to be under constant supervision. So I know it's really hard, and I have to take it upon myself to stay with the foxes for 8 hours and watch them. And I say that's sarcasm. But then for the next 48 hours, they have to be monitored. So they'd be coming home with me so I can make sure they're doing all right overnight and check on them throughout the evening whenever I'm not here. And after that, they'll be right as rain after 48 hours. So special vaccines. Possible reactions like humans and other animals would have. They're hungry. They're wondering why I'm not bringing their food right now.
Yeah. They're so cute.
Get fed soon. Come here, babies.
They seem to me to be very healthy and very happy and very curious and very energetic.
They had their first vet appointment last week, and the vets loved them. They were just over the moon to see them, but also they got flying colors on their report. Yeah, because you're such a good girl, aren't you?
And that's the thing. There's going to be lots of reports. The health of these animals, like you said, this is going to be the third time to bring it up. It's the animals first. Animals first.
I bond with all of the animals, except for the spiders. Maybe there's one spider I like here, the six-eyed sand spider. She's okay, but whenever an animal passes away from old age, or we had a couple of animals, not a couple, but a couple months ago, an animal passed away. She had cancer, and we did all we could to keep her alive. I had to take a half day. There have been days times where I've had to take a full day off, just cry and mourn that animal, knowing that while, it is my job, they're not my pets. They are kind of my employees. maybe my
Right.
bosses.
Your
But
bosses.
yeah,
That's probably a better way.
but you know, I still bond with them, and it still does affect all of us, not just me. It's also my staff. You know, I've got 4 people, including volunteers, that are specifically trained for the animals. We all have degrees in some capacity and related to biology, and have had experience with animals in the past before. And so we understand that while these guys are working animals,
Yeah.
we still bond with them. We still cry. We still take care of them. I still think that these guys are just so cute. I could die too.
Mhm.
You know, we have feelings for the animals, and we want to make sure that they're taken care of. Like my dog. My dog is our princess, and these 2 are also the princesses here now. Except my dog doesn't. She's okay with these 2. She's just like, I don't know. She was excited.
Yeah.
She's like, babies. And then they started jumping on her. She's like, no, I don't like this.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's a mutt. She's a Cocker Spaniel Dachshund mix. She is our garbage dog because she was found under a dumpster.
I had a cat a long time ago that we called a DC dumpster cat because that's exactly where we found her was in a dumpster. And at the time, my spouse, I said, I can just see where this is going. So I just turned around and picked up the cat. I was like, I know where this story ends. It ends with the cat in our care. So I'm just going to turn around the car and put the cat in the car. And sure enough, that cat became our cat.
That's kind of what happened with my cat, except it was my husband that wanted him, and the cat lived in our apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
And we just took him in. And then my husband told me later he's allergic to cats. But his name is Cheddar.
Did he know at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just keeping a secret.
Wow.
But I'm also allergic to most of the animals that I work with, including all of the haze that the animals get to. So if I don't take my allergy medicine, then I'm sneezing all day long. And a lot of times I have to go upstairs and out. But it's worth it. I'm also allergic to salt water, and I get incredibly seasick, and I'm a marine biologist.
What a perfect job for you.
I know.
I'm actually going to go into the career that I'm allergic to.
I love it so much. I didn't know I was seasick until the first time I went out on a boat shark diving.
Wow.
That was a really good way to find that out.
To find out.
But I love it anyway.
How do their colors change? Do they change it as they grow up?
I think they lose the little fuzz or the velvety fur, and their tails get a little bushier. So they grow their adult fur like, puppies do and kittens do. But maybe their markings might get a little more defined. But other than that, yeah. Even they're drinking. They usually don't do that, but they really liked the water whenever I put it in here. At first, it confused them. In the wild, they don't drink water.
How do they hydrate in the wild? Through what they eat?
Food that they eat, yeah. And they've got really great kidneys that will just store all the excess water in their body so they don't dehydrate. But these 2 really like that water bowl. After the first day or 2 of them trying to figure out what is this wet stuff.
What is this wet?
But they like it. But yeah, I think their color markings would get a little more defined as they get older. But other than that, the vets were like, we're going to have to put colors on them once they grow up.
Really?
So I only know them from their personalities.
The only reason I leaned over like that isn't because I was afraid. I just wanted the camera to
Yeah.
see if they can get the water there.
Oh, no, my kids are afraid of them. It's okay.
That's super interesting. And I know other animals do it where they get their hydration through the juicy diet that they eat, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together that Fennec Foxes were the same way. It makes total sense in the desert. Total sense that's the adaptation when you can't necessarily find convenient watering holes such as this, that you would get it through a juicy beetle that you eat.
Or the plants.
How big will they get?
Between 2 to 5 pounds. So size of a small dog.
Okay.
Right now they're like half a pound, if that.
They're ridiculously cute.
I know. They're just so stinking adorable. And see, Itchy. That's not stress. She's just a baby.
They almost look like, and I mean this in a good way.
Gremlins. Yeah.
Yeah, careful around this water. You don't want to get too much water on them. But I was also going to say like bats.
Bats too, yeah.
Yeah. The big ears.
They use their ears like that. They've got really good hearing. That's whenever we first got them, whenever they were sleeping on my chest in our living room, because I have to have some perks of my job, right?
Yeah.
I would whisper around them because I was like, I don't know how well their hearing is. Right. And then I realized I was being ridiculous and I was like, no, they're fine.
Yeah.
but because they scream really loud at each other anyway.
And I'm sure there are loud noises in the desert.
Yeah. And I mean, if they could be around my kids screaming and running around the couch, then they could listen to me talking in a normal voice.
Are Fennec Foxes, to your understanding, are they a relatively domesticated
No.
breed? Okay.
No. So unless it's a dog or even cats, cats rule us. So I don't know how domesticated they are. We're domesticated to them.
Yeah.
But
Right,
they are wild animals, and they're going to always retain those traits. So they might be tamed down in captivity, or if they are, bred and never been in the wild before. But these two will always have those killer instincts.
Right.
Or not killer instincts, but
exactly. The wild animal tendencies. They may grow relatively accustomed to being around humans.
Yeah.
They're still wild animals.
Mm-hmm.
A falconer, someone who trains falcons, that hawk or that falcon is a wild animal that is used to the person, that is basically allowed the person into their life somewhat, but they are still wild animals.
We know we're going to get bit. I mean, it's not even like, if it's what I tell people all the time is, if it's got a mouth, it can bite. If I get scared, I'm going to bite too. That's just a natural defense mechanism. But, even if they are not happy, or if they are, just playing around, like how a normal dog would know, or normal dog, but your pet dog would know better and wouldn't bite you unless it's an extreme circumstance. These two, they're probably going to bite us any chance they get. Right. I mean, even if they're playing around, they don't understand that we've got thin, wimpy human skin.
Yeah.
If we do something that makes them mad, because we're not foxes, so we're going to make mistakes to them.
Social faux pas.
Exactly. They're going to bite us. And coming into this job, me and my staff, we know that we're going to get bit. We get bit all the time.
And you have been bit. And you put the green boa on me.
Yeah.
I said, it's going to bite me? Is it venomous? And you said, no, it's fine. You'll be totally fine. I've been bit like 100 times by it.
Not by her specifically, but yeah, by snakes. And I was just training our summer interns who are going to be doing our summer camp programs and helping us out with that. We were just training on snake handling, and I was like, I hope it doesn't happen, but you might get bit by a snake. I mean, and if it does, it's not that big of a deal, as long as they're not handling the rattlesnakes, which I'm the only one with keys to that. So nobody else. I don't even handle those guys.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the, nature of the job. And we do understand that they are not, they're domestic. They're not domesticated. There we go. They're not domesticated. And they're going to bite us or accidentally scratch us. And my feet have little tiny bite marks from not you, but that one.
How mad can you be at them? You can't be mad at them at all, because they're, like you said, they are wild animals.
Maybe if they lose their cuteness.
Yeah.
Not really. No, I don't.
That's a whole separate conversation as to why somebody would be mean to a cockroach, but not to a kitten when they're both living, living creatures.
But also, I mean, you don't find kittens. Hopefully you don't find kittens randomly just in a cupboard and they run over your hands. I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't like cockroaches. I don't know anybody who actually, would say, I love cockroaches. But I try to treat them all, with respect. Like I will do everything in my power, even for a lowly cockroach, to scoop it up in a cup or just my bare hand, even though I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you feel it scratch around in your hand? And to toss it outside. My first go-to, and I'm trying to raise my son like this, my sons like this as well. The animal's not hurting you. If there's a wasp on your arm stinging you, then do what you got to do. But don't just be mean to animals for the sake of being mean to animals.
They all have a place and a purpose in the world.
Right.
Except mosquitoes, but
Mosquitoes? So cockroaches, interesting, they are like the nature's composters. They are the one who break down the leaves and dead material. Yeah, they make it, the rainforest be rainforest and vegetation. That's their role. They serve a huge role in the ecosystem. Mosquitoes, I've heard somebody say, technically, mosquitoes are pollinators, theoretically.
The males are. The females are the ones that drink the blood. The males are the pollinators.
Yeah.
And then they're also a good food source for animals too. but those animals can have other food sources.
I know. I am not necessarily singing a mosquito's praise.
You get bit on the eyelid one time.
Yeah.
And in Galveston one time, you don't like mosquitoes after that.
Like, why are you here? Why? What is your role? And some would say for a female mosquito would be for population control. Mosquitoes kill the most people out of any animal in the world. It's mosquitoes. And it's like hundreds of thousands a year, if not higher than that. It's mosquitoes.
All across the world.
Certainly isn't Fennec Foxes.
No, they're too cute for that. Even if they did, I don't think I could be mad at that.
I want to meet the Fennec Fox that could take down a person, though. I see a pea pad. That's one of the, I think I agree that being a wild animal, that it's going to do its wild thing.
Well, rabbits can be easily potty trained, even wild rabbits. They've got to have a specific place, and these guys can be potty trained. It's just how stubborn, just you're so stubborn, yeah. So how stubborn they choose to be. I try to get them to do that while they were at my house at least, but they decided that my shirt that I was currently wearing every single day was where they were going to go potty at.
It's a good place to pee. Or
I don't
worse.
think so, no. I'd rather you guys not do that anymore. But yeah, it's every day playing with them, getting them used to us so that way we can, after this exhibit, we can deal with them. Not deal with them, but, use them for programs if they are cool with it, or at least where they're not stressed out and they can be around us. And we would do probably like little fox runs in the alcoves as long as we can trust them.
Yeah.
So they can be out while we're working. So they get a lot of enrichment and a lot of time with us. They really like shoes, by the way.
It's probably the rubber smell that I'm sure rubber is not a smell that they come across much in the wild.
I don't know. My husband
So it's fun to chew on.
did teach them that it's okay to play tug of war with my socks while they were on my feet.
While they're on your feet.
Yeah,
go for it. Just go pull on the sock.
Ember especially likes to bite.
Is Ember and Blaze a Pokemon?
No.
Okay.
I just
reference.
was trying to, now that I think about it, but no, I was just trying to think of some like super cool desert names. And then this was before they were even born. And I guess they wanted to have a list of names for animals that were on display. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just coming up with names, even though we don't have most of them. And I just ran through a list. So then as soon as we got these two, I was like, okay, I like Ember for one of them. But the other one, I forgot what name I had picked. And I was driving and didn't want to pick out or get out my phone. And so me and the girls decided that Jasmine. So behind the scenes, it's Ember and Jasmine. But Blaze is up there.
Interesting. Their stage name.
Their stage name, exactly.
Ember and Blaze.
Yeah.
But really, it's Ember and Jasmine.
Jasmine's the calm one, and Ember is...
Which one's the calm one?
That one. And Ember is the one that she was doing, like, just springing off, using my head as a backboard whenever I was at my house, changing out the pee pads from around the crate that they had their own room, and in that room, a little crate that I could put them in while I left the house. But then also a huge pin around it for if I was in the house but couldn't keep my eyes on them.
Yeah.
And then they had the run of the room if I was like in that area. And so what was I saying? Oh, for the crate, whenever I was changing out their potty pad, Ember would just come running and jump off my head and just, like
parkour.
Get the zoom. Yeah, pretty much parkour, get the zoomies. Yeah. They would just crawl all over me. The last night that they stayed at my place, they figured out how to climb up on top of the computer desk. And so that is where I keep my Pokemon figurines, and they were just smashed all over the floor. And I was like, yep, that's about right.
Yeah.
So can't blame the babies.
You can't blame them for not getting over your Pokemon figurines.
We can try to set boundaries, but those boundaries also include us, making sure we're not leaving things out, or we're not setting them up for doing whatever naughty thing they want to do.
Right.
But, if they're biting and actively trying to play tug of war with my finger skin, I'm just going to say no. And I'm going to, like you would with a puppy, redirect them, put an interesting toy in front of their face and say, here you go.
Redirect.
So we don't raise our voices at them because, they don't know what we're saying. So it's an excitable noise or a scary noise. We don't want them to, get too overwhelmed or excited. And we also don't want to do any negative reinforcement. So we try to do calm, gentle voice and then, redirect them. Like the birds in the alcove, though they're a little bit smarter. Whenever they do something naughty and they know what they're doing,
Yeah.
they go to timeout, but we never raise our voices at them. Or like when the foxes, they did something in my living room the last time they were there. I think it was my kids. One of them scared my 7-year-old. I don't know how he could be scared of them, and so I think she was chewing on something. And so I was like, okay. And then we just went back into our room and I gave them a lot of toys and, they had playtime there. They didn't know they did anything wrong, but I took them out of that situation.
Right. You're just training them, as much as you can to kind of.
As much as you can with a non-domesticated animal.
All dogs originated from domesticated wolves. And it wasn't the humans that domesticated the wolves. The wolves learned if we act nice around the people, they'll give us scraps.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't it wasn't just that humans domesticated the wolves. It's that the wolves learned because they're smart. If we live symbiotically with the humans, then our resilience goes up. Our numbers can go up. Our survivability goes up.
It was mutually beneficial.
Right. That's it's so fascinating because you would think of a caveman, quote unquote, going out and like stealing a wolf baby and domesticating it or whatever. That's not what happened. The wolves came around the fires of the people, and the people took their drumsticks or whatever and tossed it to the wolves, and the wolves began to associate humans with food or with easier access to nutrition.
It took thousands upon thousands of years to even get to that point. Like wolves today, they're not domesticated, and you can't take a wolf out of the wild and be like, "You're my new puppy."
Right. Yeah. See, exactly. Exactly. It's not that all wolves became domesticated. It's that the wolves that domesticated themselves then evolved into the other breeds of dogs and things that we have now. Mm-hmm. But there are still obviously the same or similar wild wolves that are absolutely positively not domesticated, and you should not approach.
Don't play with wolves
at any point. Yeah.
I would not recommend it. I've never done it, so I wouldn't know, but I wouldn't recommend it.
It weirds me out is not the right way to put it, but I am super uncomfortable with, people having bears as pets. First of all, it's really sad to see a grizzly, in captivity like that. But a bear, this will never end well. Mm. Why are you messing with that? It's kind of, it's... Some people are just kind of built differently, but at the same point, a bear absolutely does not. It cannot be tamed.
And same with foxes.
Yeah.
They're actually up there in one of my favorite animals, and I've always wanted a fox, but that doesn't mean that I would ever go and buy one for myself. I mean, maybe no, not really, but no, I would never go buy one for myself, and I would never ever take it out of the wild because we just don't have what they need to survive, and they're still wild animals. These two, they were bred obviously for, museums and places.
For outreach
like
and for outreach. Awareness of.
But the museum has the museum has the capabilities to provide this stuff for them. Like this whole exhibit, there's no way I could afford this on my own for an animal.
No way.
So, I've got the museum's help and backup, and this is what gets my need for wanting to play with foxes out of my system.
So in the vein of transparency, there's something that I talk about, and this is one of the kind of perks you get when you listen to the podcast, is kind of this behind the scenes stuff of why I'm thinking. Museums exist and have existed for hundreds of years with a certain amount, in my opinion, of acceptable, what's the word I'm looking for? Acceptable amount of controversy. And by that I mean, Egypt is a prime example for this theory. There is a whole, obviously it doesn't need to be said, there's a whole mess of controversy around Egyptian artifacts and how they're procured, where they came from, Howard Carter 100 years ago and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But if there is a place for that kind of controversy to exist in an educational, teachable moment kind of way, that's what museums are for, and zoos for that matter. Yeah, no, nobody should go out and just hunt elephants and kill elephants or try to bring elephants home and domesticate them, whatever. But there are institutions around the world that are set up to, have some elephants on display towards the goal that it spreads awareness about the animals, about the elephants, that they need protection. And the same thing for fennec foxes. Obviously, you don't want to be taking fennec foxes out of the wild, and you don't want to go in there and just kind of use nature to your will in that way. But in this setting where there's kids on the other side of the glass as we're recording right now, they are falling in love with fennec foxes. And they're going to go on and understand that fennec foxes are wild animals and they need to be protected in the wild because they exist in this museum. Whatever controversy you come up to with your own conclusions from understanding that animals are in a museum, the end goal is that it saves more of them out in the wild because of this teachable moment right here beyond the glass.
And, for that matter, museums and zoos, always learning, always evolving.
Right.
We learn that maybe we should talk to the governments for where these things came from and work with them, partnership with them, and we can learn more from that. So, we try to correct our mistakes.
Right.
Zoos, most zoos now, most reputable zoos have programs to help, protect animals in the wild. They donate a lot of money
Exactly.
or they do a lot of, like the Houston Zoo with the Houston Toad Project, trying to breed and release more Houston toads because that toad species was almost extinct.
Right.
And they're working on those programs. So they've got a lot of behind the scenes programs to help those animals in the wild, and people, who pay to come see those Houston toads, that money is going towards those programs. Just like
Right.
money coming into the museum is going towards us learning more about, how we display things or, upgrading fox enclosures or, whatever else, we can get cooler things and we can learn more about how to display these and learn more about how to do things the correct way. And we could teach others as well as tell people about our processes of, well, we did it wrong this time, so this is what we're going to do next time. And,
Right.
Keep evolving and growing like that. Just like humans, we just grow, we learn, and we do better.
Yeah, exactly. And a really cool example also, other than the toads, and I don't know how old, depending on the audience, how old you are listening to this or watching this on YouTube, which is one that you really should watch on YouTube because it's just too cute. Depending on your age, some folks might not remember the dilemma that the California condor was in, and that it was through the numbers had dwindled so low that in the wild they were going to go extinct.
Yeah.
It did take in that instance a human intervention to breed California condors in the wild with the full intention, with the purpose of releasing them back into the wild to build their numbers up so that you could build a population in the wild that would then start breeding again with each other in the wild. But it did take a zoo or zoos in California to help bolster the California condor population so that we can sit here and talk about California condors today in 2025 as a recording and have the population be all the stronger than it was back in the 80s and 70s and 90s when they were trying to rebuild that population. Reputable institutions like Houston Museum of Natural Science, the Houston Zoo, even San Diego Zoo, talking about the California condors and everything. One of the reasons why they do exist and why they do have some wild animals in exhibits is not just to teach people about the animal, to help them preserve the animals out in the wild, but also in the California condors case, in the toads case, the Houston Zoo, bring them back. Mm-hmm. So if there was ever, God forbid, fennec foxes were ever, and maybe they are an endangered species to some degree, but if they ever became California condor endangered, when you get down to a dozen or so of them in the wild, it is institutions like zoos and museums that would help bring them back.
Exactly.
Because they for one reason or the other, a lot of animals can go extinct or be near extinction because of, not always, but because of human activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it takes humans also sometimes to recognize our species has made a mistake. We have not done right by these animals. Mm-hmm. We are going to have to protect these animals for a time to help build the numbers up so that we can undo the damage of our ancestors, basically.
Exactly.
So there's ethics and things that play into there while they're in captivity and all that. But the means justify the ends or whatever. And I'd say in the California condors case, yeah. I'm sure there were people kind of seeing California condors in captivity, rightfully concerned about the ethics of having a wild animal in captivity. But the end result is that we can save that animal in the wild. And
it's okay to be concerned about that animal in captivity, because that means you care.
Exactly.
And that's what we want. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, I'll be the first one to yell at people whenever they start harassing animals on display. Like you in here, you know, I can't tell you how many times I have to yell over a wall, "Stop tapping on the glass!" You know, at people, because it gets to me too. And then, you know, whenever I take my kids somewhere where there's animals on display, like the zoo, I catch them tapping on the glass. I was like, "No, you don't! Don't you dare!" But you know, I fully get it. It's okay to be concerned. I mean, that's really good, because that means you care about them. You know, I get concerned.
Yeah. Semi-unrelated. You know, we live in a world of AI increasing its grip and its spread throughout society, and there's concern about AI. I've had my own voice. I've narrated videos, and people say, "Oh, that voice is an AI voice." It's like, no, I just spent 20 years working on my diction and how I pronunciate. So I was like, I don't know to be offended by that or encouraged that I sound as good as AI. Like, I don't know.
I would be happy about that.
See, I don't know how I feel about that. And part of me is like, it's kind of an insult, because I spent so much time to work on my craft to just enunciate.
I get that, yeah.
And then the other side is you enunciate so well that it might be AI. But at the bottom line is, I appreciate the concern with AI. Even though sometimes it may be misguided or misdirected, it's good to have that concern over AI, especially when it's when artists are involved and taking work away from artists and human touch and everything like that.
Exactly.
So bring that back around to animals in captivity. The concern is appreciated. That is very much something that we should not and cannot lose as humans, as our species. We need to be concerned and to take care of animals, especially endangered species. And everybody involved with these animals, with the Fennec Foxes specifically in this case, since that's where we are, that is your concern. That is the staff's concern.
That is the whole reason why I'm here. And I've been here for 11 years now with the animals. You know, we had a smaller animal department before all of this stuff initially. Hey, stop fighting. But we've had a smaller animal department before in the past, and it just keeps growing, which means that we're learning more and our staff keeps growing to take care of our animals. And like I said several times, our first job and our main job is animal care. I teach, I do dissection labs, I do outreach, but if any of that interferes with animal care, then I'm not teaching or doing outreach. Like for the opening of this exhibit, because this has been what's been giving me gray hairs for the last few months. I have had subs for my labs then. I don't go on outreaches anymore. And up until like we get our nice routine down, I'm not teaching anymore. So until we know what we're doing, which we do, but.
Right.
But this is our first concern, is the animals, the animal care. We get here so early every morning so we can make sure the animals are cared for and comfortable before people come in. We can make sure that, okay, you look like you're stressed out, so we're going to pull you off display before people come in, so that way we're not making it worse.
Right.
And then, we're with them, feeding them all day long, playing with them, training with them, bun runs. Bun runs are really fun, especially trying to catch them after, putting them away, doing bedding changes, doing research on what kind of foods, like how can we do better for you guys? And,
right.
Making bunny mansions, now fox mansions.
Yeah, so this is definitely, this is not some roadside sideshow where the person went out in the woods, threw a shackle collar on something, and then brought it to the side of the road and said, $5, come see the incredible suffering animal. Like, it doesn't even...
Literal blood, sweat, and tears. My own blood, sweat, and tears. Literally and figuratively went into this exhibit. Me being here for a long time, like many hours, pretty much living in this exhibit. I can't tell you how many spots in this floor that I've had to crawl around on to get wiring hooked up, or even just, measuring within an inch of certain things. And we're still going to be working on it, even though it's already set up. If we can make it better, we're going to make it better.
Absolutely.
And, it wasn't just a spur of the moment, like, tomorrow, let's put some foxes on display, or tomorrow, let's get an armadillo. It took a lot of research, talking to vets. If our vets can't handle it, we're not getting it. Right. If our vets have never seen it, we're not getting it. Making sure we can have the animals, and then how and what are future plans for the animals? How can we make their environments better? Who can have what? And then, we go from there. So lots of research. Like I said, my desk is a mess from just all the notes, all the paperwork on the animals, all the planning for this and everything. And, my boss has got pictures of me when we were setting up the exhibits, of me inside of the exhibits, just staring at vines, trying to figure out, like, would she like this one? Or would she like for the boa? Just staring at two vines, like, which vine would she like personally better? So, considering what I feel like that specific animal would like as well. Like, for Finley, our opossum, there's a stick that was in his cage off display. He really liked that stick, and I was very insistent, and probably people think I'm weird. I know my staff do, and I was like, that stick has to come with him. Yeah. That's his stick. He needs it. Yeah. So, trying to figure out what they would like. Like, a lot of that blanket right there, that was one of my kids' baby blankets. The foxes really fell in love with it, and I was like, well, sorry, son.
Yeah, you don't need it anymore.
Come in here. Yeah, he forgot about it. He doesn't know. Eustace, the armadillo, the balls in there are from my kids. And so my youngest one will want to come back to the museum just to visit his toys. Yeah. That's all. He's like, can I go visit my balls that they're in with Eustace? And I was like, okay, we can go.
He doesn't want to visit Eustace. He wants to visit his toys.
He wants to see his toys. And they're the cheap little playpen, but, Eustace really liked them, so Eustace got them. So lots of blood, sweat, tears, time, dedication, research, and then just knowing the animals and trying to figure out what would they like. What would Ember like in here? Yeah. She just likes everything.
Priorities. Yeah. The priorities are...
And a lot of it was, if I were this animal, what would I like? And so we have to channel our inner animals for display,
They're so stinking cute.
And all of this is with vet recommendations, too. Right. I mean, I'm pretty sure she would like a cake. She doesn't get cake.
Right. Exactly. Every decision made is what's going to be best for the animal. Yeah. We're not going to put things in here just because we think it's cute. It's going to be what is best for the animal. Like you just said, a cake. It would be cute if a Fennec Fox ate a cake. But that's not what's best for the Fennec Fox. So,
like, some of these toys now that they're playing with, they've got tiny little mouths. Once they grow up and get bigger, these toys are going. Yeah. Because they'd be, I don't want them to swallow it. Right. And I'm glad she's playing with that little bunny.
They look like they're having a great time.
And then as soon as we leave, they're going to go to sleep again.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem.
Thank you so much for listening to the HMNS Beyond Bones podcast, presented by the Houston Museum of Natural Science. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends, follow us on social media, and as always, stay safe and stay curious.